Welcome back to ZMS Esports Studio, your home for all things virtual cycling and virtual racing, where you are joined today by me, your host, Mark, as I navigate you through week 3 of the Love Triple T series on Wahoo RGT. And speaking of racing in Triple T, where is today's race taking place? Well, we're going to head down under and we're going to Perth in Australia, where what I'm sure would be a beautiful view over Melville Water in real life, but it's going to be a 27.4 kilometer race today, a little bit of a longer one for Triple T, with only 64 meters of climbing. So quite a flat one. And what I found out from racing this one, and I'm surprised I'm back in this one, and you'll see me today in this race, is that actually being flat is not as easy as it sounds. It's constant effort. So let's see how the teams got on as we jump on over to that start line and see everybody getting ready. And on our way to doing so, let's review the teams today. We've got 3R Wiggles, Racing Fort Riders, and the team that I'm a member of, West London Virtual Racing, or WLVR for short. RGT Australia broken into the subcategorized teams of dingoes, koalas, magpies, quokkas, sharks, and wombats. And then we have the team to beat in this league so far, AESRT. I nearly got my acronym wrong there. OTR Racing broken into their subcategorized teams of Blue, Eureka, Ultraviolet, and Wicked. So let's take a look at those riders as they're getting ready in the last 30 seconds here before going great guns off of that start line. So we've got koalas there, and they've got a good amount of contenders on the pitch today, if you will. And another Canadian. Like in this, we've got Chedro. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If that is a French Canadian, I apologize. I've probably butchered that. And we are off. So let's go top left to bottom right as we normally do. Let's take a look at AESRT. So great guns off the front here. No Jojo today. What's going on? So we're making up for Canadians in other areas, but losing some in others. But we have Arimia Daniel, another familiar name from the React eCycling Race Series for Romania there. Really pushing ahead. Look at that, almost 6 watts per kilo. Really getting that lead charge in and really setting who's going to be doing pulling on the engine, on the front of that pace line to begin with. Fantastic effort there, Arimia. And it looks like we've got a whole bunch of French riders too. And we've got Sharks here for RGT Australia. B. Kirk pulling on the front there. Looks like the team is slowly beginning to get into formation for a pace line and finding the place of where they're going to be. Look at that, beginning to close up those gaps and get a nice formed pace line in, and probably communicating behind the scenes there for that switch. That's a good time to switch as well. Get your rest in early and get it regularly. And quokkas also for RGT Australia. We've got Mr. Baxter there from the UK, really pulling there on the front. But it looks like our Wilmot is about to switch out for that position on the front. Or is that a switch that's already happened? I believe that's a switch that's already happened, actually. And quokkas are really beginning to move up this league for what are we in? Season 5 of the Love Triple T series. If you're watching this feed and it's the first time you've watched one of these races, I should say for the uninitiated that Triple T's here stands for Team Time Trial. And we'll get a little bit more into that as we go. But we've got the Ultraviolet team here, and we've got Lutz Ploiter on the front there, Von Deutschland, and going great guns on the front there. Really doing some great effort for the team and really pulling that pace line along. Wahoo RGT, where we are today, does have draft benefit. And I'll talk a little bit more about how this draft benefit differs from other virtual cycling platforms in a bit. But we have OTR Blue with those hugely familiar names to anybody who watches the React e-cycling race series, such as Gordon Jackson, who's doing a phenomenal effort on the front here. Just hovering around that sub-anaerobic right now. And really doing a great effort. Looks like a bit of a gap has formed with his pace line there. But it looks like they're not going to have any trouble catching up at all, especially when we consider that we've got Peter Austin in there and Jason Bird. I'm struggling to remember the first name there, and my apologies, and Kenneth Barkley as well. All familiar names if you watch the React e-cycling race series. Dingoes. So we've got Jay Tippett pulling on the front. Look at that great sub-anaerobic effort. And again, you can tell what effort levels they are by the color-coded bar beneath each of the name tags. Your green is going to be just beneath your threshold. As you get into the bright yellows, that's where you're around threshold, maybe just a little bit above. Going into your dark ambers, that's when you're getting into the sub-anaerobic, and the full red is going to be anaerobic. So we were going to talk about draft benefit a little bit. And in Wahoo RGT, what happens is you get those numbers that you will sometimes see come up during this thing on the top left, during this feed, I should say. And it will tell you how many watts that rider is saving. And that's the rider who is getting the draft benefit behind the rider in front. What will happen is if you match that and you don't get your number, your power number turning red, it stays white. Well, the game will actually reward you by making the two of you go faster together, because you are matching what would be your optimal draft and your optimal pull in the real world based on the mathematics, very clever mathematics that emulate real world physics in Wahoo RGT. So it's a fantastic thing, and if you want to experience it for yourself, I would thoroughly recommend jumping over to their website and trying it out. 3R Wiggles, here we are. We've got Jay Matre pulling on the front here, and it looks like we're getting ready for a bit of a switcheroo as to who's going to be the engine on the front. Really good reformation here of the pace line. Really good pace and maintaining that cadence with one another. Again, as I covered last week and in previous weeks as well, as long as you have a cadence meter attached in-game, the animation of the cadence on your avatar will match that of your real world. Will match that of you in the real world. That's what I was trying to say there. JG pulling on the front now, keeping a good even pace, but not pushing it too hard right now, which is good. Knowing how to pace that effort, as I say all the time, is going to be what's going to prevent you from overcooking yourself and overtaxing yourself before your time. And just as I say that, getting into the anaerobic here. So I did mention that it's relative flats, but we've got a relative uphill right now. So it's a relative flat made of uneven terrain. And maybe that's where we're seeing these anaerobics coming in. Magpies here, look at that. A fantastically spaced pace line. And it looks like D Newton is switching out with Vijang to take his turn on the front. Look at that. It's almost as if they knew what they were doing. Fantastic stuff. Look at that. Good pace there. And Wombats. Again, the team with all the riders on course today. C Vigor on front there. And again, a very nicely spaced, a very nicely timed pace line with very even cadence between the riders in this front pace line here. Now, Knights Along, who we nearly always see on the front, is a little bit behind, hopefully catching up. There we go. It looks like C Vigor acted as a bit of a sweeper there, going back and pulling forward. Sea Vigor is certainly feeling strong on this one. Going back up to the front again. Race for Riders. Again, another wonderfully paced pace line. Great cadence, again, very even. Nice work. And I like the fact that everyone here has not just got the colors for the kit, but also with the customized blue Evo bikes here. And that's another great asset of Wahoo RGT. Another great selling point is not only can you customize your avatar, but Wahoo RGT have gone to get licenses for likeness of real-world bikes from real-world bike companies, including Evo. And because I'm a Canadian, I have to espouse this one every time. I also have the Argon 18, which is on my avatar. And I'm going to say the joke I say every time, which is, if only I had the money in the real world to have a real-world Argon 18. OTR Eureka, the USA arm of OTR. Really great effort. We've seen OTR Eureka really pushing up in their standing in this league. And it looks like we've got fantastically paced effort here today. And again, the communication between team members is absolutely vital in Triple T, letting your team members know when you're tired if you're pulling, and when it's turn for somebody else to take over as the engine on the front, as we've seen S. Blackwell do there. And that can be done through the baked-in race radio feature that comes as part of Wahoo RGT. Or you can do it from some alternative means as well. But that is a really great race radio. I've used it for the first time the other day, and I can attest that it's really great. You can do global, where you can talk to everybody, or you can configure it to be for your team only. And we've got OTR Wicked here. And it looks like this is the all-British team. So we've got our Wagstaff on the front. And everyone's keeping really evenly paced. They're not really pushing into their anaerobics yet. And it looks like this team is really getting comfortable with knowing how to temper their efforts, let's say. Fantastic stuff. And again, I get very excited about those really nicely spaced pace lines. Look at that, riding in formation. It's almost like there could be snowbirds, if you're talking about the Canadian military. Oh, and who's this quite debonair gentleman? Is that me? Yes, it is. Now, you can see me there in my Cutters jersey. 5 points to anyone who gets that reference. And yeah, what I will say is, it's never pleasant looking at yourself going into exertion. And but what I will say is I do feel that I have perhaps one of the most earnest pain faces you'll see. And so I'm taking my turn pulling here. I was working with Brett Smith out of the UK and Raf Nunez out of Ecuador. So we're quite an eclectic bunch as far as our nationalities go. And I was about several weeks out of practice by this point. So I've gone from being a 3.5 average when I'm pulling on the front to about a 3 to a 3.1. And that shows you how quickly you can kind of lose that. You keep it in your legs, but the trouble is you lose it in your cardio system, which was why I've got such an earnest pain face in the webcam view that you can see there. But we pulled pretty good on this one, I think. Koalas, look at that formation. And we've got a fellow Canadian in the back there, M. Chedro. That might be a French name, in which case it was Chedra. And I apologize if I've got either of those pronunciations wrong. And H. Dave pulling on the front there, getting a bit of a gap. But it looks like our pace line is catching up. And as a testament to what I was saying about the customizable in-game bikes, it looks like every team member has got a different customized bike in Koalas here. And I was talking about the draft benefit before with those data assets that you can see. You can see that in the top left going on right now. The red is that the rider that we're following, which is Wendy Wonderwheels, is just clipping over what is denoted by the mathematics to be the optimal wattage. And then it can tell you how much you're saving, and then you get those icons there that tell you how close you are to your rider in front. That green area telling you that you're in the optimal draft zone. So fantastic work there, koalas. All right. By the time we've got through everyone, it's time to start back from the beginning again. So let's take a look at AESRT. So we've got A, Dene, and are both, I think, siblings. I might be wrong. It could even be husband and wife. I'm not sure. But I believe siblings. A, Dene pulling on the front. Arimia Daniel, very powerful rider from Romania, just in behind. And somebody is coming up the side here, Vikomaspa, to take the turn on the front, it looks like. Oh no, dropping back. Has been on the front previously. But tempering that, pedaling, tempering that cadence to get in behind, which is the absolute best way to do it. And I've learnt that one the hard way. So we are neck and neck right now between AESRT and Sharks, as you can see on your center right there of the screen. Look at that, they are neck and neck, and that's distance remaining. So this is a battle for the ages. So RGT Australia with the Sharks right now, and AESRT, a little bit of a tighter formation there, even that's hard to tell, with Sharks, but that's reformed of AESRT right now. AESRT are the team to beat anyway, but Sharks have really been getting their effort up. They've clearly been putting a lot into the training, and it's really showing. It is really showing. OTR UV, all the familiar names from React E-Cycling Race Series, Neil Walker, Andy Bennett, Lutz Ploiter, and we've got Tony Lake as well, and Richard Whittle. So we've got Quokkas, OTR Blue, and Dingoes. Look at that pace line with Quokkas. They are really, really talented at holding formation like that. OTR Blue, they make good pushes ahead, and we'll come back to them in a second, but yeah, look at this formation. And T. Rice, I believe, is the rider who's coming away from having been on the front. Again, doing some great effort with pacing that slowing of the cadence to drop in behind. OTR Blue, they've reformed that formation, but they're really good, and this is where OTR Blue excel at their own unique thing, is they're really good at having somebody really push ahead, and it doesn't matter, they will get the formation back. And Gordon Jackson, yeah, he's got all kinds of power in those legs for really catching on the back there. And Dingoes, again, great formation. There's something in the water down there in Australia. Something that makes them great at holding formation, I guess. And so we've got Ardrady taking over on the front here as B. Lilburn is falling back. No, other way around. Ardrady is falling back and B. Lilburn is taking over, and we've got that 5.5 watts per kilo, stuff that makes me very jealous. Magpies and 3R Wiggles. So Magpies, great formation. 3R Wiggles there. They're keeping a great formation too. What have they got in it there? That's neck and neck as well, or it's, yeah, maybe about 100 meters in it, 50 meters. And that's the same bend that we're seeing there come up on that camera. So yeah, they're about 75 meters behind, but that is very close. So we're going to have to see what happens at the halfway split and see how that kind of tempers people's effort. Who's maybe a little bit overcooked. I can tell you that I got a bit overcooked, so maybe I spoiled a bit of a surprise for you there. Wombats. Again, fantastic formation. Maybe it's something to do with the gravitational density down there. It just makes them better at holding formation. I don't know, I'm just going for silly jokes here. RTR, the Racing for Riders. So we've got CVB pulling back S. Wrexham of the United States, who I believe I'm seeing for the first time, racing for RTR in Triple T. Pulling on the front there. Again, looks like the effort is being tempered right now relative to Wrexham's FTP, or functional threshold power. OTR Eureka, the USA arm of OTR. Jay Furman pulling on the front there. Oh no, it looks like, again, was pulling on the front, but is falling in. So instead we have S. Elliott pulling on the front. Great effort there, guys. Looks like you're going to get that formation back. Gordon Jackson, so you're not racing in this week's one? I'm sorry to hear that, Gordon. And I hope when you say a bad night, I'm hoping it's something that is easily solved, and we wish you all the best. And speaking about wishing the best and cycling, I guess we would be remiss if we didn't say that our hearts and our thoughts go out to the family of Gino Maida. That was a very shock announcement when that came out. Incredibly shock announcement. And from everyone here at ZMS Esports Studio, our hearts and our thoughts are with the family and friends of Gino Maida. AESRT and Sharks. So we're coming up on the halfway point, which is denoted by this arch that we're about to pass with AESRT and Sharks. We will wait, as we always do, until all teams have passed. And I've got to remind myself to wait for that final team. But when we do pass, which is what I was leading into, and I promise I won't forget, we will see the halfway split and see what the halfway times are, and we can compare when we get to the end here. Lutz Ploiter really pulling for OTR UV on the front there. Look at that in the full anaerobic. Some really great effort there. Fantastic, reforming that pace line. Ready for getting into Oh, I see. My understanding. I understand, Gordon. And sometimes it just happens, I'm afraid, where your legs aren't in it or your lungs aren't in it. And certainly I was beginning to feel it after several weeks of being out of routine practice of riding. Certainly I was feeling it in my cardio system. But we'll get to that. I don't wish to spoil the surprise. So Quakers, OTR Blue, and Dingoes all coming up on this midway point. So is that Quakers who have this? Just by a hair over OTR Blue. And then OTR Blue by just a hair over Dingoes. So 21 minutes and 3 seconds. So Magpies and 3R Wiggles. Looks like we've got a bit of a sprint going on in the 3R Wiggles to get that halfway time. And Magpies, it looks like Belo is pulling pretty strongly on the front there, going with a different tactic, and they're going with the draft. So who's going to take it? It looks like Magpies. It looks like that the draft and pull has worked out better for them than the 3R Wiggles. Which team are we on now? Wombats. Keeping fairly evenly tempered right now. I'm looking at focusing on the race as a whole, which is certainly not a tactic to be sniffed at. Certainly better than cooking yourself, as what I did. Racing for Riders. Keeping evenly paced here, sub-anaerobic. And if anything, looking at tempering back a little bit from what it seems like. Holding steady, keeping that cardio effort maybe a little bit subdued, holding that little 15% or 20% back, knowing that they've got the same again to come. Fantastic effort there. OTR Eureka. Look at that. Back in great formation. And there we are. Oh, and here I am. I think at this point I remember mentioning to everybody through our voice chat that, oh, we're halfway through. And you can hear those no-in sighs of like, oh, geez, somebody had to say it, didn't they? Somebody had to say it, that we've got the same again to go. And then, OTR Wicked. Koalas. So it looks like, again, a little bit of a sprint on the front, with the team pulling up and hopefully reforming. Couple of sprints going on. Matthews, Wendy Wonder Wheels, and I believe Zhang on the front there as well. Oh no, this is not Zhang's team. So yeah, a sprint to get the third man over the line there for the time. And also a bit of a sprint to regroup. So what are we looking at for the halfway split? So AESRT still remaining the team to beat. 19 minutes 26 seconds. Sharks barely 3 seconds in it here. 19 minutes 23 seconds. OTR UV really pushing back up to where they have previously been. 20 minutes and 32 seconds. Quokers really taking everyone by surprise and really pushing up that top 5. 20 minutes 51. OTR Blue rounded out that top 5 at 20:55. West London VR. So we did 23 minutes 13 seconds. I think I did pretty good despite being so far out of practice. I'll get it back, I'm sure. So now that we've done the halfway split, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Chase the Yellow, which is going to be hosted here live on the ZMS Esports Studio, well, that is now available for you to book in for the races on Wahoo RGT. So the races are scheduled in, and you can schedule yourself into those. Go and check out the schedule by going over to Wahoo RGT. And how are we getting on with the AESRT? So this is the team to beat right now, going up against their number 2 place competitor, who they might have this yet in this season. They might be able to snag it away from AESRT. Look at that formation with Sharks, keeping a really tight formation. AESRT, I think, maybe somewhat aware of a time that they had to beat depending on when they raced. And we're starting to see some sprints come out. We're starting to see that top-end effort. They're starting to reform, however. So what's in it right now? So it looks like the edge at the moment is going to Sharks. But can they hold that pace? So there's almost 100 meters in it, but we've certainly seen some phenomenal pushes from AESRT before. Will they be unchallenged or will they be dethroned? Well, dear viewer, you have to stay to find out. So Quokers and OTR UV, a little bit of an advantage there to Quokers, really pushing ahead. Again, there's something going on down there in Australia with those fantastic formations there for the pace lines. OTR UV keeping very stable right now. Let's Ploiter keeping very strong. on the front there, really pulling that effort along. OTR blue. This is the point where we lost Gordon Jackson, the point that Gordon was referring to in those comments. And don't worry, Gordon, there's no shame in this. I know every time it happens, you're kind of like, oh, you get a bit, I feel the same way too when it happens to me, but it happens to all of us and happens to the best of us. So J-Bird pulling on the front there. Peter Austin, Kenneth Barkley. Play and catch up, but I'm sure it's not going to take much for them to catch up. Very powerful riders. Fantastic effort, guys. And Dingoes. So we've got McAnulty pulling off the front there. B. Lilburn taking another turn on the front, going into that anaerobic, really pulling that pace line along. Dingoes, again, another team who are doing really great on getting that training up and really beginning to push ahead in the league tables. By the way, you can follow the statistics of these races by also visiting OTR Love Triple T on Facebook. Just search it in the Facebook search function and you'll be able to follow the results there. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't say, keep joining us back here each week and you can see the results live. 3R Wiggles, a little bit paced out now. So we're going to have to see what happens here. And we've got G. Matre pulling very strong on the front there into full anaerobic, but leaving the rest of the team to have to kind of sprint to regroup. I'm sure they're good at doing so. But here's hoping that that doesn't cook their respective efforts and kind of buffet the effort, if you will. So one of few climbs in this very flat course that we've just risen and descended over. So I'm sure we'll begin to see some faster efforts from the sprinters and the rollers as we get into this final half of the race. So there I am again. I'm getting to that point where I really don't want to relax into my elbows anymore. I just want to be comfortable. And we've got Brett Smith taking his turn on the front, live from London. Doing a great effort despite also being a little bit out of practice. Raf Nunez from Ecuador. And then myself playing catch up. And we have RGT Australia's Magpies here. Great formation still. And much like WLVR, there's only 3 riders in it today. Oh no, a 4th rider, I believe Zhang has fell off the back there. Looks like a bit of a technical actually, because Zhang is normally a very powerful rider. And that number's not really coming up. Maybe a bit of a smart trainer connectivity issue. So Bilo really getting into that anaerobic, really doing some great effort there. Wombats. So Neutzeling really getting up in the front of this pack again, getting up to that strength that we know Neutzeling for. And we've got JP on the front, pulling for the team. And C. Vigor, I think, falling into the back to find position in the pace line. Great effort, guys. Racing Fort Riders. S. Rickson pulling on the front there for the United States. And keeping a really evenly paced cadence amongst all riders there, as you can see, denoted by the animation of the cadence on their avatars. Great effort. A team that I'm sure trains together if they're that skilled at keeping even pace. And fairly even wattage per kilos as well. And that will of course be respective to rider height and weight. Fantastic stuff. OTR Eureka, the USA arm of OTR. Jay Furman pulling really strong on the front here. Really nicely paced. Keeping fairly good, just a little bit above threshold there. Not really pushing too hard. Saving something for that final sprint, I'm sure. S. Elliott, I think a bit of a connectivity issue there, which is why his avatar ghosted, but looks like he is back. Fantastic stuff. I'm sure you've got it in you, Mr. Elliott, to get onto those cranks and really close up that gap. There we go. Sub-anaerobic right now. Looking to close. Eating some of that tarmac between both him and B. Payden. Got a bit of a gap now from the lead. So OTR Wicked. So we've got Andy Macker, Sean Lavelle, we've got Andy Lawrence and our Wagstaff there. Really good formation right now. And we're starting to see those anaerobic and sub-anaerobics coming out, knowing that we only have, about 1/3 of the race remaining. Looking to get that good time. And I didn't notice it before, but everyone has the same customized in-game bike as well in this team. I'm loving that there are team themes going on, and that teams have made a decision about what bike manufacturer is their favorite or would be most beneficial to them in-game. So here I am, playing catch up on the back here. We've got Raf Nunez, Brett Smith, and myself. And has anyone caught the reference yet from my jersey that says Cutters on it? Again, 5 points, 5 fictional points to anyone who gets that reference. I feel like we did a really good job on this part of the race, keeping really well paced. And Raf Nunez did some wonderful turns on the front, really pulling strong, as did Brett. Brett, much like myself, admittedly and was openly discussing being out of practice. And there's absolutely no shame in that, but I just want to say well done, Brett, for the efforts you put in, taking your turns on the front, knowing that. Koalas. So Kay Coleman on the front here, keeping fairly even right now, fairly even-tempered on that effort. And as I say, that getting into the sub-anaerobic. But it looks like some tactics are coming into play across all the teams of knowing how to temper those efforts, which I think we're going to see some good sprints, some good finish line sprints today, which is going to be fantastic to see. So the team has 3 people up front right now. Hopefully the rest of the team can unite. The way that this works is much the same as Velodrome Triple T in the real world, in Olympics and UCI, what they'd be called UCI governed leagues. It would be the third man rule. So in other words, third rider over the line is what counts as your finish time. A little bit different. We are on road bikes and out in a virtual equivalent of the real world rather than fixed gear bikes or track bikes on the velodrome. ESRT looking very strong there. Looks like all our French riders are pulled forward. The M. Lacan, A. Dene, and V. Commencement. And I think I'm pronouncing those names correctly. You'll have to forgive my dumb English as a first language natures. Look at that, fantastic efforts, but would we expect anything less from French riders? And our Aussie competitors here with Sharks. So we're seeing some great power here. That was some great work there by, was that TG? He just fell back there on slowing that pace and letting the stronger rider pull forward there. Fantastic stuff. ASRT really getting into this final kilometer there, which is what was denoted by that purple marker that we just passed. And Shark, so it looks like ASRT have clawed this back. There's about 150 meters in it right now. But are we going to see some good sprints from Sharks? Oh, this is exciting. So we have just over half a K left for ASRT, 800 for Sharks. And it looks like it's going to be taken by ASRT once again, proving to remain the reigning champions of the Love Triple T series of races on Wahoo RGT. But again, very impressed by the evenly spaced and really great formed pace lines from our Aussie teams today. ASRT, it looks like we're getting into that sprint territory now. Sub 200, sub 150. There we go. So the game has been taken, has been claimed today by ASRT, but wowee, what a fantastic push up the league we have witnessed from RTT Australia Sharks. Fantastic stuff. Wonderful effort. There were barely seconds in it there. Definitely nothing to be sniffed at. Quokers and OTR UV. Let's Play to doing a lot of pulling today on the front. Wonderful effort. And Quokers, we've got R Wilmot on the front. So Quokers are now just as they cross this marker, now sub 1K. So Quokers have got it right now, but are we going to see a big push from OTR UV? Tony Lake, who's also very powerful, taking over as the lead, as the engine, if you will. That's night pulling for Quokers. OTR Blue coming in sub 1K. Great effort there from Jaybird, Kenneth Barkley, Peter Austin. Keeping very evenly spaced right now. Getting ready to do those sprints, it seems like. Dingoes. They've got their free men, their free riders forward. Ready for that effort as well. Going sub 1K. Quokers and OTR UV. So how long do we have? 300 meters for Quokers. 400 for OTR UV, so depending on this sprint, this could really be clinched either way. There's less than 100 meters in it. So let's see. So we've got Neil Walker on the front there. Oh, this is going to be a tricky one. Oh no, there we are. Quokers have claimed it. Because it looked like our pace line for Quokers was beginning to space out. And it looked like it could be claimed if the third man came over from OTR UV. But yeah, unfortunately, it just wasn't OTR UV's day for third place. Fantastic effort there. OTR Blue. And then we've got Dingoes coming in for the final 150 meters. Getting those sprints coming to bear now. A little bit spaced out. But a fantastic time to place nonetheless. So Magpie is just sub 1K here. Just past our 1K demarcation. And Wombats likewise coming in for the sub 1K. keeping very tight in their formation right now. Again, keeping ready for that sprint. Thank you, James. James, I believe, is the organizer and the aggregator. Would that be the correct term? The person who runs all the scores for Love Triple T. Thank you for watching live with us, James. Geometry for France, getting nicely grouped for the sprints. Oh, really good spacing there. Really good formation to really get that third rider over the line in a good time with the first rider. Great stuff. Magpies, what have we got here? We've got 300 meters remaining. We've got 2 men. Where's the third? Oh, there we go. Good. This is where it becomes all important to have at least 3 riders grouped together. Probably pretty obvious at this point. But, you know, if you're a first timer to all of this cycling stuff, maybe this is helpful information for you. Great stuff there, a little spaced out, but there's barely a shave of a second in it anyway. So we've got a rider leading right ahead for Wombats, but we've got the sprints coming. There we go, catching up. Those are great sprints, by the way, fantastic stuff. Everyone's really putting every kilojoule they can spare into this, I'm sure. OTR Eureka, so the USA team keeping very evenly spaced. Again, keeping that formation nice and strong, ready for those sprints. RTR, the Racing Fort riders. Look at all these anaerobic efforts, fantastic stuff. I'm sure in the real world, all out of the saddle, all in the drops, really pushing through those crank arms. Great stuff. OTR Wicked, just hitting that sub 1K. Eureka now in the final 3/4 of a K. So we've got Jay Fairman pulling in the front there. Just getting into that sub anaerobic for everybody on road right now. I'm sure getting ready to push up on the descending crank arm, the descending pedal, and really get into those drops and out of the saddle. In the real world, of course. There we go, look at that. Starting to get those big pushes coming. I think when it comes around to me, I really had maybe cooked my effort a little bit by the time we got to the finish line here. So I normally say that I'm a 300 meters guy. I think I maybe brought that right the way down to about 250 meters. But I won't spoil the surprise. You'll get to see me in full face contorted glory, I'm sure, when we get to that point. And Eureka, wonderful effort of staying very evenly paced, shoulder to shoulder, crossing that finish line and getting a really great time as a result. OTR Wicked really also doing the same thing, bunching up nice and strong, keeping that real close proximity. Fantastic stuff. And Koala's now just crossing that sub 1K. Or the 1K marker, I should say, but now there we go in sub 1K. Here we are, I'm dropping back a little bit. I'm trying to remember who was taking over here. I believe Brett, but we're getting to be shoulder to shoulder, getting ready for those sprints. And I think maybe, yeah, I really kept this close to the number before I got out of the saddle. And there we go. I'm really trying to push that. What did I get up to? Oh, yeah, at that point I just wasn't paying attention to numbers. So I managed to break 5 watts per kilo. So not too bad. Not too bad for being out of practice, to be honest with you. And I was the last man over the line there. Raf Nunez and Brett Smith, wonderful efforts from you two. Fantastic stuff. Thank you for sharing that ride with me and for chatting with me through that ride. It's one of those experiences where the camaraderie of it really comes to bear and really leaves an impression with you. And that's what I really love about Triple T in the virtual space, is that camaraderie is key. So Koala's here, spacing out a little bit. There we go, closing that gap a little bit. Fantastic stuff. Everyone is, of course, aware of this tactic of really needing to make sure your gap is very minimal with your other riders. Here we are, here come the sprints. Fantastic effort. Well, what a wonderful race from everybody involved. So, how have things changed from the midway point to the finish line? Well, ASRT, again, they remain the kings of Triple T, the reigning champions, the ones to beat. So they went from being neck and neck to being 17 seconds ahead of Sharks, but wowee, what a wonderful push up the league table we have witnessed from RGT Australia's Sharks. And Quokers, look at that, they have dethroned OTR UV for that third place position. So I'll go through times in just a second here. OTR UV taking 4th place and OTR Blue holding strong on 5th place. So AESRT, 39 minutes 15 seconds is a bit of a longer course today. 39.32 for Sharks, Quokers 41.27, and there's barely 7 seconds between them and OTR UV. So what a wonderful effort we saw from both of those teams today. And OTR Blue sticking strong, 41 minutes and 51. And because I have a vested interest in WLVR, we kind of dropped down from 12th to 13th. But I think considering how out of practice we were, we did pretty strong for only 3 riders on road today. Well, thank you for joining us live. I've really enjoyed presenting this to you. It has been wonderful to bring the Love Triple T series week 3 of season 5 to you, and I hope you'll join us next week. And I believe that is promotion week. So join us for that, and you can watch these live on the ZMS Esports Studio. And remember, you can sign up now for the races that are now scheduled in for the Chase the Yellow, which is coming up in July, which I will be hosting commentary for. And I hope to see you there. Have a great day.